Faith Church. It's Pastor Jordan here from the Hinton campus, and I'm so honored to be able to speak to all of the small groups tonight. I love small groups. I love it so much that I'm a part of 3 of them this semester. And so let me do a quick shout out. I want to shout out to the Young Adults White Buffalo group that I'm a part of that meets there in Weatherford on Monday nights, for the adults with kids that are loving an hour and a half while they don't have to deal with their kids on Wednesday nights, and of course our men's group in Hinton that meets at the ASAP on Saturday mornings. It's small groups is just such a big, important part of what our church does, maybe even my favorite part of what Faith Church does, because it's a lot of churches that all make up one church. It's a lot of groups that are gathering that makes up the one unified church, and we are better together. And we're so honored to be able to be a part. Hinton campus, Oklahoma City campus, we win together, we're stronger together, and we build together. And that's what we're doing. That's what Faith Territory is about how each of our different groups in different places, small groups, campuses, we all work together for one common goal, and that's to build God a house. That's what I'm talking about today. That's what the message was on Sunday, and that's what I want to focus on here. We're going to go to a text. I have a very simple thought. We're going to go to Nehemiah chapter 7, and I'm going to read verse number 4. It says, "The city was wide and large, but the people within it were few, and no houses had been rebuilt." That's very important. The city was a big city. The wall had been reconstructed, but nobody had come to live there yet. That's the question I want to begin by asking you today is this question. What's the difference between a house and a home? What makes it different? What takes a house or a building and turns it into a home? I'll start with a story about me. This is kind of from my past. I'm not exactly proud of some of this, but it illustrates my point pretty well. When I just had graduated in 2005 from Bible college, I was starting a ministry. I was so on fire. I was ready to do big things for God. The way we put it is I was ready to charge the gates of hell with a super soaker. I mean, I was ready. Just turn me loose, Jesus, and let me do things for your kingdom. The problem was I graduated and I couldn't find a church that would hire me. I couldn't find a church that would bring me in, and there was nothing for the church that I grew up in. And so I was looking for a church. I tried out at a couple places, nothing worked. And finally, I found this wonderful church in the suburbs of Chicago that said, "We would love for you to come here. We're planting a church very similar to Faith Church at the time. We're planting a church in a school. We need someone to drive the trailer, to set up, to tear down, run the snake, set up the chairs. And here's the good news is we'd love to have you. The bad news is we can't pay you anything. But we do have a guy in our church, a single guy. He's in construction, and he's built a really big church, big house, actually. It's like a mansion, and he's living in it by himself, and you can live there for free if you'll come move up here to Chicago and work at this church." And so I pulled into this house. I had never met this guy before. I was so excited to be in ministry, and I met Chris. That was his name, and we were living in this house, and it was 10 bedrooms. This house today would probably be worth over $2 million. It was beautiful. It had dining rooms and living rooms. He had built this to sell it, but this is right before the market just collapsed in 2008. Some of you will remember. You're old enough to remember when the housing market collapsed and the bubble burst. And so now all of a sudden he's stuck. He's built this big, beautiful mansion. He can't sell it for what he needs to sell it. So here it is. These 2 single guys are living in a multi-million-dollar mansion. But just to give you the idea of what it was like, I was sleeping on an air mattress, and we had no furniture. We had one TV sitting on the floor, and we had lawn chairs on this beautiful hardwood. Everything's finished perfectly. And we're just sitting there watching. We didn't even have TV. We had a stack of Seinfeld DVDs that we'd watch at the end of the night. And instead of having anything to put our lamp on, we had stacked pizza boxes. I'm talking, this was the best bachelor pad that's ever existed. That's what we set our lamp on so that we had light in our living room to watch our TV. And we just sit there with empty pizza boxes. It was ridiculous how beautiful of a house it was with 2 bachelors just living in it. It was a house, but it wasn't a home. And that's the big question I'm asking is what makes a house become a home? Some people think it's how they decorate it, how they finish it. Some people believe it's the people who are living in it. Now that one's a really good guess. Like it's our family that makes it a home. It's the people that are here. But here's the interesting thing. That can't be quite right because when the kids get older and they move away to college or they move away, they still come back and they still consider it their home. So it's not just how we decorate it, and it's not just the people that live in it, because sometimes that changes in the flow of time, in the seasons of life. So what makes a house a home? That's the challenge, and that's what I want to talk about today. All this work and all this effort and all this faith territory has been taken back by Nehemiah. He's built this wall around this large city, and yet nobody's still living in it. So let me share with you the kingdom reality, what really is happening, I believe, in this story, and how that applies to what we're doing as a multi-campus church, 2 different campuses, but 1 church. What does that mean for faith territories? What are we building for? That's that big question. What will take what we're building from a beautiful building that services the needs of our community and all the reasons and all the purpose that we're doing it? What's going to take that from a house to a home? And here's the answer. It's not always the decorations. It's not always the finishes. It's not always even the functionality. And it's not always even the people that live in it. The answer is simple. It's the presence of God. The presence of God in what we're building, the presence of God in what we're doing, the presence of God in our families is the real secret to the sauce of Christianity, of what makes a house a home. There's this old movie back from the 80s. I feel like I'm giving a lot of old references here. I'm dating myself, but it's called Field of Dreams. And the most famous quote from that baseball movie is, "If you build it, they will come." Well, that's kind of true, but that's not why we're building it. We're building here at Faith Church so that His presence will have a place to dwell. And where His presence is, that's where people gather. See, here's the reality. Before they built the wall, the first group of exiles that came back from Babylonian captivity, their first priority was building His house. And that was important. They needed a temple. They needed a place for God to dwell. But the problem is they had built the house of God, but they didn't build a wall to protect it. And without a wall to protect it, there was raiders, like those 2 guys we've been preaching about every week, Tobiah and Sanballat. Why did they hate the wall going up? Because they could no longer send raiders to steal sacrifices and steal money from the treasury and come and ransack and take whatever they wanted. Now there was protection there. And so here's the thing. God's presence was not being honored because people weren't coming. People weren't living. Here's the whole situation of Jerusalem. You've got a big city, but nobody in it, because God's house wasn't protected and His presence couldn't be honored with the sacrifices. We build because we're building a place for God. And it's very easy to say that, I want to build this for the next generation. Yes, the next generation's coming. But I can guarantee you they will come if they meet and encounter God. I can guarantee you they're coming to bring their sacrifices. They're coming to bring their gifts. They're coming to worship. They're coming to experience life change. Why? Because our purpose is what makes a house into a home is the presence of God. If you get His presence, there'll be fullness of joy. If you get His presence, there will be peace in the midst of a storm. If you find His presence, there will be healing. That's what we're building, a place for God to dwell. Let me give you an example from history. It's found in a book. The book's called Dominion. It's written by a non-Christian, actually, historian named Tom Holland, not the guy that plays Spider-Man, a different Tom Holland. But he tells this story about the Roman general who invaded and conquered Jerusalem 63 years before Jesus was born. His name was Pompey the Great. And when he got there, the first thing he wanted to do once he'd conquered the cities, he wanted to go with his soldiers into the temple because the Jews had fought so hard to keep these Roman legionaries from coming into the temple. There was something special. They had died in droves to keep them from entering this sacred holy space. He didn't understand what we understand about the Old Testament and the sacred space. And interesting enough, his scribe writes that after they'd conquered Jerusalem, and the first place he went was into the temple, into the holiest of holies, and they pulled back that curtain, and he was so surprised because there was nothing there. There was no Ark of the Covenant. There was no presence of God. Think about that. The whole time Jesus was ministering on earth, ministering to the Jewish people, ministering to the Gentile people around there, like the Syrophoenician woman, the whole time he was talking about the presence of God, the temple where everybody went to sacrifice and worship, it was void of God's actual presence. Why? Because the presence of God dwelt in him bodily. But they missed it because they had built a house, but it wasn't God's home. And that's just what I wanted to speak to you. What makes it a home? Well, yeah, we're going to build together. It's going to be beautiful. I love seeing the vision. I love when Pastor Josh shares me all the finishes. That matters so much. The ways that we're going to be able to serve the community that we haven't been able before. Let's be honest, OKC family, the parking spaces, all of that is going to be amazing. But we can't forget about the most important thing. We're not building a house. We're building a home so that our kids can come and live in it, in the presence of God. So our grandchildren can come someday and experience the life-changing power of the Holy Spirit. What makes a house into a home? Before all else, before even the people that inhabit it, it's got to be the presence of God. I'm so thankful to be a part of what you're doing here. We're standing with you. We're praying with you at the Hinton campus. I can't wait to see what God's going to do.